There is a kind of safety that exists with no words, without gestures, without anything you can easily address to, and however your cat seems to recognize it almost instantly, as though it has always known how to grasp something deeper than what is visible on the at first glance. You may notice it in a quiet moment, when your cat settles near you without asking for attention, without any clear necessity, simply choosing to stay within your presence as if something about being close to you feels different from everything else around it. Welcome to Cat Facts Funny. In this episode, we are not looking at obvious behaviors or learned routines, but at something far more subtle. The way cats sense emotional safety, the way they interpret your presence beyond movement and sound, and how, over time, they begin to decide whether being near you is something they can fully trust, or something they must quietly stay aware of. Because to a cat, safety is never just about the environment it lives in, but about the feeling that environment creates, and sometimes, without realizing it, you become the center of that feeling. The space between being there and feeling safe. It is easy to assume that if a cat chooses to be near you, then it must already feel safe, but the truth often unfolds in a much quieter and more complex way, because proximity alone does not always mean relaxation. A cat can exist in the same space, follow your presence from room to room, or even rest nearby, while still holding onto a subtle layer of alertness that never fully disappears, as though a part of it is always prepared for something to change. Emotional safety begins where that quiet vigilance slowly fades, not all at once, but gradually, as your cat begins to experience your presence as something predictable rather than something it needs to interpret. You may start to notice the difference in ways that are almost invisible at first, in the way its body softens into the surface it rests on, in the way its breathing becomes slower and more even, or in the way it no longer adjusts itself every time you move. These are not dramatic shifts, but they carry a quiet meaning, because they reveal the moment your cat stops simply being near you and starts feeling at ease within your presence. How cats sense what you don't say. Cats do not rely on clear signals or deliberate communication to understand the emotional space around them, and they do not need explanations to interpret what you are feeling. Instead, they move through a world of patterns and subtle consistencies, paying attention to the rhythm of your actions, the steadiness of your voice, and the tension that may or may not exist beneath your movements. Even in silence, there is something about your internal state that is never entirely hidden from them, because what you carry within you often shapes the atmosphere around you in ways that cannot be easily controlled. A restless or distracted mind may create a kind of quiet instability, something that does not announce itself directly, yet gently alters how your cat chooses to position itself in relation to you. It may pause a little longer before settling, remain slightly more distant than usual, or simply observe without fully relaxing. But when that underlying tension is absent, when your presence becomes steady and consistent in a way that does not require interpretation, your cat responds in the simplest way it knows how, by letting go of the need to monitor and allowing itself to rest without hesitation. The unspoken test that happens over time. There is a kind of evaluation that takes place between you and your cat, though it never appears as something intentional or structured, and it is easy to overlook because it unfolds through ordinary moments rather than obvious events. Your cat may approach and then hesitate, sit nearby but not too close, or remain quietly aware of your movements without engaging directly. And while these behaviors may seem random, they are part of a continuous process of understanding. What your cat is responding to is not a single moment, but a pattern that builds over time, where each interaction, each movement, and each reaction either reinforces a sense of stability or introduces a small element of uncertainty. Safety, from your cat's perspective, is not something that can be confirmed once and then assumed forever, but something that must be experienced repeatedly until it becomes a reliable expectation rather than a possibility. And when that expectation begins to form, something changes, not suddenly, but in a way that feels almost inevitable, as though your cat has quietly reached a conclusion it no longer questions. When safety becomes something your cat can feel, there comes a point, often without any clear indication, where your cat begins to exist differently around you, not in a way that demands attention, but in a way that feels noticeably more at ease. You may see it in the way it stretches out fully instead of remaining curled, or in the way its eyes close completely rather than resting in that half-alert state that suggests it is still listening to the world around it. There is a softness that appears in these moments, a kind of unguarded presence that only emerges when there is no longer a need to stay prepared. Your cat may expose parts of itself that it would normally protect, or remain still even when something in the environment shifts slightly, choosing not to react because nothing about your presence suggests that it needs to. This is not simply comfort, and it is not something that can be created through effort alone. It is the result of a consistent experience where your cat has learned, slowly and without words, that being near you does not require caution. Why some cats stay slightly guarded. Not every cat reaches this state easily, and some may continue to carry a subtle layer of alertness even in environments where they are safe and cared for, which can seem confusing at first, especially when there is no obvious reason for that distance to remain. But emotional safety is shaped not only by what happens, but by how consistently it happens, and even small variations in energy, tone, or behavior can influence how a cat interprets its surroundings. Sudden changes, unpredictable reactions, or moments of tension that appear without clear patterns can create a kind of instability that does not need to be extreme to have an effect. Cats do not analyze these changes in a conscious way, but they adjust to them instinctively, often by maintaining a level of awareness that prevents them from fully relaxing. And so, what appears as distance is not always a lack of trust, but sometimes a reflection of uncertainty that has not yet been fully resolved. The quiet signs that change everything. When a cat truly begins to feel emotionally safe, the signs are rarely dramatic, and they do not arrive all at once, but instead reveal themselves through small, almost unnoticeable shifts that gradually become more consistent. You may find your cat choosing to rest closer than before, turning its back toward you without hesitation, or remaining completely still even as you move through the space around it. These moments are easy to overlook because they do not demand attention, yet they carry a depth of meaning that goes far beyond what is visible. They represent a shift from observation to trust, from awareness to ease, where your presence is no longer something your cat needs to interpret, but something it can exist within without effort. And in that shift, the environment itself begins to feel different, not just for your cat, but for you as well. When your absence still feels safe. There is another layer to emotional safety that often goes unnoticed, and it reveals itself not when you are present, but in the quiet spaces where you are not. A cat that truly feels safe does not experience your absence as a disruption, but as a continuation of something that remains stable even when you are gone. You may never see this directly, yet its effects appear in small, subtle ways. Your cat resting in familiar places without urgency, moving through the home without signs of tension, or returning to its usual rhythms without hesitation. What this suggests is something deeper than attachment, because attachment seeks proximity, while emotional safety allows for distance without distress. Over time, something even quieter begins to take shape, something that is not tied to a specific place, a specific moment, or even your immediate presence, but becomes something your cat carries within itself as a kind of internal steadiness. You may notice it in the way your cat explores more freely, lingers longer in open spaces, or reacts less intensely to small, unexpected changes, as though the world around it has become slightly less uncertain. Your cat does not need to constantly confirm your presence in order to feel secure, because what you have built is no longer tied to a single moment, but to a consistent experience that your absence does not erase. Emotional safety forms slowly. Emotional safety does not arrive all at once, and it is not something that can be created through intention alone, because it forms slowly, through repetition, through consistency, and through the quiet absence of unpredictability. It is something your cat experiences long before it becomes something you can clearly see, and by the time it reveals itself, it has already been there, growing in the background of your shared space. And then one day, without any clear moment of change, your cat simply rests near you in a way that feels different, not cautious, not temporary, but settled in a way that no longer questions what it has already understood. If this made you see your cat a little differently, consider staying with us, because there are many behaviors that appear simple on the surface, yet carry meanings that only begin to unfold once you learn how to notice them. And if you haven't already, you can subscribe not as a reaction, but as a quiet decision to keep exploring these unseen parts of the world your cat lives in, one moment at a time.